Here's something you don't see every day. Human anatomy, done with the 3D tool in Adobe Illustrator. Let's see how this comes out. So I started out drawing the body shape as a basic blob, which at the end I realized you probably don't need, but what the heck, it's in there anyway. I drew one half and then took the other half and reflected it and then joined them together. You'll notice as I do this at the bottom, there's a little divot there, which really kind of drove me nuts. So I took some time to take it out of there, which you probably don't have to do. So what I did here is made the shape and then brought up the 3D tool. You go into Effect, 3D Materials, it's in there, the dialog box will come up. And then all I did really was select the object and click Inflate, which kind of blows it up like a balloon. So really all I'm going to do in this tutorial is basically draw out all the basic muscle groups, and I'm going to click Inflate to inflate it, which is going to add lighting, which I have the lighting set to 180 degrees. So it's basically a straight up and down lighting. So you see here I'm doing the chest, and now I'm drawing one of the heads of the shoulder, which is probably going to be behind the chest. So you're going to have to put that behind the pec muscle. And then the other shoulder muscle will go behind the front deltoid muscle there. So I'm going to keep going down the arm here, drawing all the shapes. Basically, I'm going to draw out the tricep all the way down into the forearm. And I'm taking a little bit of liberty here with the anatomy because the arms are cut off, so I'm just kind of making that part up as I go along. So it kind of helps if you're doing this, you have a basic understanding of anatomy and, you know, what a muscular body looks like. As I'm drawing this, I'm not really adjusting any of the lighting. I'm just, whatever lighting comes in, which like I said, is set to 180 degrees, I'm leaving as is right now. Once I get all the pieces drawn in, I'll go ahead and adjust all the lighting. At this point, you're probably asking, why the heck would you try to do 3D anatomy in Illustrator when you could just use a 3D program like ZBrush or just digitally paint it in Photoshop? Well, I really don't have an answer for that, other than I'm a masochist and I like to do things the hard way. But no, seriously, I've seen a bunch of people do tutorials using the 3D tool now, and it's like how to, you know, illustrate a 3D character and stuff, and that's really cool if you're doing cartoons or small things. But I wanted to do something that's probably a little more difficult and kind of not something that the 3D tool in Illustrator is really meant to do, just to see how it would come out. I wouldn't recommend this if, you know, you're trying to do really super detailed illustration, because you'd probably be here a long time trying to perfect it. This would probably be something that's cool if you wanted to do it to get your anatomy in and give you some basic lighting, and then, you know, take it and put it into Photoshop and then play around with it and finish your illustration there. Or you could leave it all in Illustrator, it's up to you. I mean, this is the first time I'm doing it, so I'm not exactly sure how great this would come out to be. I'd have to play with it more, but, you know, it's definitely something cool and worth trying. Right here I'm putting in the serratus muscles, which you really can't see because they're kind of in the shadow, so I'm sort of making it up based on what I know of anatomy. It might not be 100% accurate, but it's art. Who cares? It could be a little off if we want it to be. Especially if you're doing something here like stylized anatomy, like if you're doing something like anime or manga character or comic character, you'd definitely take liberty with the anatomy and kind of do it the way you want to do it. As long as it looks sort of correct, most people aren't really going to care. Now I'm laying this bottom set of ab muscles down by what I think is called the inguinal crease. We get that in there, and then the final abdominal muscle on the bottom, and that should be pretty complete. You see me keep flipping on this object in the back, and like I said, I started with that. You may or may not need that, I guess. Depends on how close you are in the gaps with the muscles. If space is showing through, that could just fill the space, so you really wouldn't notice anything, but you probably don't need it. So it's your choice if you want to keep it or not. Okay, so now we're just doing the neck muscles. There's one neck muscle that goes all the way up to like behind your ear, and this other smaller one, I'm not sure what it's called. I'm not an anatomy expert by any means. And then the last muscle will be in the back. There's your trapezius muscle. We're just putting in that last abdominal muscle, and that should be it. I'm only doing one side of this because really, being that the lighting is 180 degrees up and down, once you do the one side, you really could just reflect the whole thing and have the opposite side be already done for you. I mean, you could, of course, if you wanted a different lighting scheme, light it from the left or right, but you have to make sure that you adjust the lighting on each and every muscle to make sure that it's all correct. So now what I'm going to go through and do is adjust all the lighting. So one of the first things I'm going to do is on the bottom under ambient light, I'm adjusting the intensity to 70, which will make the shadows not as stark. I don't want it to be super, super dark. So I'm going to go through and adjust the intensity, the rotation, and the height of the shadows. As you see, as I move the slider, the rotation of the shadow will move around. So I want to kind of be consistent where all those shadows fall. And right here with the shoulder, I kind of want to make sure that where the shadow falls, it kind of is continuous on the bottom. So it goes from the rear delt to the front delt and then kind of goes into that shadow on the chest. Full disclosure on this, I actually did this before I recorded it. So at the end, I'll show the torso I originally did. This is just another one I did, so I had something to record and show. I think the first one came out better, so I'm gonna go with that as the final. One thing I don't like, and I don't know why this is doing this, and I'll have to investigate it, is if you notice there's around the shape, it looks kind of like a stroke. I don't know if that's some kind of, raster artifact that's happening or whatnot. It's not a big deal. It just makes it look a little weird. At the end of this, I actually take this and put it in Photoshop and I just blend all that stuff out just to have a nice clean illustration. But I'll have to investigate why that happens. If anyone knows, feel free to say it in the comments, because I'd love to know myself. Keep in mind, even though this is a 3D tool in Illustrator, this is by no means a 3D model that you could export out as, like, say, an object file and throw into ZBrush or something. I'm pretty sure if I was to group all this and rotate it around, it might not even be all lined up. I don't even know how it would look if I rotated around the whole thing. So this is good, I think, for just like a basic 2D illustration that has a 3D feel to it. Again, if I was going to do this and I wanted to be 3D, I'd use a 3D app to do it. It's most likely ZBrush or Blender or something like that that's meant to handle that. Okay, so we're just going through and putting some shadows on the serratus, adjusting, again, the ambient light, the intensity, rotation, and the height, make everything somewhat as consistent as possible, so at least it doesn't look too mishmashy. So right now I'm drawing the lat muscle, which you'll see from the back. Obviously this guy's got bigger lats, the one I'm drawing at least in the model. But I figured I'd just put it in there so there wasn't just this weird empty space between where his bicep is and the side of his body. Obviously you probably wouldn't see it as much as you are going to in this illustration in real life. Obviously there's a lot of shadow there, so this is more just for illustrative purposes, not photo accuracy by any means. Okay, just doing the last few adjustments on the neck muscles and the traps. Just trying to get the lighting and everything to sort of match so it looks like it all goes together. It does look a little weird down in the bottom left where the serratus muscle is, but as I said, I did one earlier that looked a little bit better, so I'll show you that in a second. So here's the one I did earlier on the left side. Obviously the abdomen area looks a little bit better. So what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna copy this and I'm gonna put this into Photoshop to clean it up a little bit. So again, you don't have to put this in Photoshop. I'm just doing it because I wanted to put it in there, maybe do a little bit of cleanup on it. If you want to keep this completely in Illustrator and keep tooling with it and find a way to perfect it, by all means do so. The only thing you have to know is having all these objects in Illustrator with lighting effects and whatnot, and I don't even have cast shadows on this, can, you know, really bog down the file. So just be aware of that it can get a little bloated. And you can see here I'm smudging out some shapes, putting in a little bit of definition into the pecs, kind of just smoothing edges and whatnot so that they're not so sharp. So I'm going through now, I'm trying to blend out these lines that, like I said, for some reason they come in, it's like a weird stroke. I think it's just an artifact from the rasterization or whatnot. Not exactly sure, but it's easy enough to just blend away in Photoshop and take it out. I mean, you can see here, this almost looks like it was maybe sculpted in 3D, sort of, which is kind of cool. And you'll notice as I did this, I sampled the colors right off the photograph I used as reference. Obviously, you could use other colors and whatnot. You don't have to go with the beigey skin tone. I mean, you probably could have used oranges or blues or whatever you want. So, you know, don't think you have to be tied to whatever your reference is. Going down the middle and kind of making it uneven because muscles, when they attach, don't attach in an even line. So what we're going to do here is flip the illustration, and then I'm going to put the two halves together. We're just gonna have to erase out that bulky back piece. You don't have to erase it. You can make a mask and mask it out if you want, but it's not really needed. You can just erase it. So now you can see the two pieces together look actually pretty cool. And then just erase out some of the middle seams there so it doesn't look so odd. Now, being that this is in Photoshop, you can always just take a brush, paint over whatever you don't like, blend it a little bit more, change the colors, deepen the shadows, you know, give it a little bit darker core shadow, whatever it is you want to do. A little bit of a belly button. And that is basically done. So now you have a 3D torso done in Illustrator. that you can take into Photoshop and do with whatever you want. Hope you guys like this. Hope you enjoyed it and learned something. Let me know in the comments. Thank you.